Hey, okay, I just took a picture by accident and sent that to my stories when what I'm trying to do is have a live. How you guys doing? It is 52 weeks of design. I'm Alexa Hampton. I invite Steele Marcoux. I don't know why I say we, the royal we. Yay!
Hi.
Can you hear me?
I can
Hey, how
hear
you
you. Can you hear
doing?
me?
I can hear you. I'm in a place with some ambient noise, so I apologize.
No worries. It's you got to do what you got to do. There's some ambient noise on the other side of a door right near where I am too.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm so happy to talk to you for a lot of reasons. I didn't realize until doing this obviously, I know that you're a journalist, but I did not realize what you had been doing prior for the family connections. So, everybody, this is Steele Marcoux, who you all know, the editor-in-chief of Veranda magazine.
Hi, Kat.
And yeah, wonderful industry royal. So first tell me about your family and how littered you are with people in the arts.
Okay, first of all, thank you for asking me. And for those who don't know, Alexa sent this like amazing questionnaire, which I felt like after I was done, I was like, that was a lot of deep reflection time. I've really come to peace with some things. But also we in the magazine world also send out questionnaires. And I feel like I learned a lot from your questionnaire of questions that I now want to ask people. So anyway, Alexa, you too are quite the journalist and we learned something from you. But there were a lot of great family questions. And so again, thank you for asking me and giving me a chance to celebrate that. My grandmother was an artist, and actually, I didn't even do this on purpose. But that
Wow.
like it's not that. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay. I can't see the next one.
Here, let me. I'm so not into my house these days that I'm not going to show you
Okay, good.
my house.
You don't have to. This is supposed to be.
This is like just a little pencil sketch. It's all that I have from my grandmother. My mom has more of her stuff. But anyway, my grandmother.
That's amazing.
So my grandmother was an artist and met my grandfather they went to art school together, which I only have recently learned, which I think is like so cool and romantic and like fun.
Totally.
My mom is also an artist now, but she sort of discovered that late in life. And so I've got, that's a painting my mom painted, which I love.
Love it.
And then my uncle, my mom's brother, is an architect. And so on my mom's side of the family, they're like all artists. And then this painting, which is one of my favorites, was actually painted by, hold on, either the grandfather or the uncle of my mom's art teacher. So anyway, this is like my little like family art wall.
Yeah, it's an altar to the family art.
Exactly. But yeah, I feel like, I can put a sentence together on a good day, but it has been a long time since I have really flexed my own creative muscle, and I'd like to get back to it someday. Because in terms of like art, creative muscle in other ways, but like in terms of art. But I have these two little boys, and they're both, they love to make artwork, and it's just, it's so fun to see them get into it and how good it is for their brains, and watching that as part of their development. Anyway.
But also, when you have people in your family, there's some quote that I was popping up somewhere recently that we've all read that says something about like all kids are artists, and then describes the fall from grace, probably being self-conscious. But when you have that in your family, it makes everything possible because you see that like you can continue it if you want.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you naturally get a little bit more encouragement, and there's like more talk about it and all of that kind of stuff.
And then it's a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Alexa, do you ever draw? You draw, right?
I do.
You've showed me some of your drawings, and it's like, didn't we talk? We talked once about how you draw while watching TV, and this is actually something that someone mentioned to me at work recently. she's decided she doesn't want to have two screens going. Like she doesn't want to watch TV and be on her phone, which is I think what we're all doing these days. So she started kind of like not mindlessly.
I do solitaire.
Exactly. It's all like, you know, whatever. But this friend of mine at work, she draws while she is watching TV, which I thought was such an interesting, like, I don't know, brain engagement of like you're watching something, but you're also, I don't know.
No, I have to do it with movies that I've already seen, so that I'm not required to look up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's usually like an action movie or something. But so
right.
When was the last time you picked up a pencil and put it to paper?
In an organized way, as in like.
Oh, okay, yeah, not taking somebody's number.
Wait, pardon? It broke up for a second.
I said not writing down their phone number.
Yeah, right, exactly. Not just jotting down like my to-do list. The last art class I took was as a senior in college, which was over 20 years ago. But I thought I wanted to be an architect. So I took architectural drawing, and it was so much fun. I mean, it was like, you know, and it was like a tiny little taste of, you know, the pulling all-nighters, having critiques, you know, that kind of thing. And I loved it. But I really haven't done much drawing. I've never painted. I like to draw, but I really haven't done that in a long time. It's been way too long. I think I might need a little therapeutic art class. Well,
as you should, but as much as it's great for children to see people in their family doing it, because then they know it's a thing, for those of us who like grow up and do other things, there is that you know, you feel like you need the capital A artist to be doing it. And it can feel, but that's terrible for us. And well, I think also it's worse for us because we see, you know, amazing artists and architects all the time.
Totally. Exactly. It's like we see so much that we think, or at least again, my role as a journalist, I'm like, well, that's what you do. And I can help tell your story, but I don't do, but then, you know, I think we all need some sort of making, the act of making, whether it's like, you know, photography or sewing or something. You just need some sort of like outlet basically to kind of keep those juices flowing. But my mom is a really interesting one because so my mom grew up in a house where her mother was an artist, you know, my mom's whole life. Yeah. She didn't, and she did other things. She went to business school. She's like a math, you know, business finance kind of person. Yeah. And then her like, you know, once my sister and I were out of the house, she started from the very, I mean, she literally took like a class, just like, let's see, you know, this will be fun. And then she became really, really disciplined about it and started selling artwork. I mean, it's just really interesting to me because she didn't really start it until, you know, much later on, but people say, well, you have natural talent. And that always bugs her because she says, no, I've worked really hard at this. Like I've dedicated a lot of time.
She has both. I mean, there's some people who cannot be taught.
True.
Well, that sounds pretty rough too, but I know it's like they simply cannot be taught. But I love the idea where you just said she was really disciplined about it, because I don't think, you know, I have a dear friend who's a writer, and he used to in college and then still now, because that's his profession, be so disciplined about it. And in the visual arts, I don't think people realize how important that is.
It is,
you know, it's not, I think people think of art as an undisciplined thing. Right. But so when we think about journalism, I think that's a disciplined thing that not enough people give artistic credibility to.
Totally.
It's a funny
balance.
Feast or famine. So how did I know this because I've read the questionnaire and everything else, but tell everybody how you got started in journalism after having this delicious taste of architecture.
Okay, and I'm like, how much? Now I can't remember. Did I give you the whole backstory? But so after college, I thought
Well, I also do a little homework as well, so it might not fall in the questionnaire.
Just like, you know, give me the timeout signal if you think I'm oversharing. But But after
Me?
college, but I
don't recognize what oversharing is.
okay, okay, me neither. I mean, and like, hello, we're on Instagram. Isn't that the point? Like,
Totally. You just
what
put that mirror up to us. That was
exactly.
unsettling.
No, but so I really thought I was going to go to architecture school. I interned with a great architecture firm in college, and you know, I was around all these young architects who were like, "Don't do it," you know, and all, which is so sad, you know. And I kind of want to like call them, "Come on," but anyway, so I got after college. I thought, well, before I go back to school, maybe I'll just like get like a job for a little bit and like live in a city and do that thing. So I ended up getting a job working as a reporter covering
again,
the pharmaceutical
not
industry.
diametrically opposed.
Right, I know, exactly. But I was a healthcare reporter in Washington D.C. of all things, which I had like no background for. I mean, I was an art history major, thinking I was going to go to architecture school, you know, whatever. But it was a job, and
in DC.
I was in D.C.
How'd you end up there?
Oh, it's where my best friend from college is from, and I worked for her dad. Basically, I was like, I want to move to a big city, and I don't think I want to work for an art gallery, because I've been interviewing for art gallery jobs in New York, and I was like, that's not for me. And she was like, you can go work for my dad, and so I just did that. Awesome. But it was great because, again, like I didn't know anything about healthcare or, you know, wonky DC stuff like at all. But what I figured out was being a journalist is all about, I mean, this probably sounds super obvious, but learning new things, like asking questions, finding out, oh, like what's going on here. It's almost sort of like being a detective a little bit.
Yeah.
Except for then you come back to your desk and then you figure out how to tell somebody else, you know? And so it's like you take this information, you digest it, you figure out what's important, and then you kind of think about who your audience is that you're talking to, and then you communicate that back to them. And I just loved that. Like I loved the pace of it. I loved that every week was something different. I didn't feel like I was like, you know, I don't know.
Painting yourself into a corner.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So then, long story long, as I like to say, so I started dating someone who's now my husband. He is from DC. I know, right? I started dating
no stories about exes.
That could get ugly. And then he has all this family in Alabama. Again, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. He ended up going to law school here in Alabama, and I moved with him. And he was like, do you want to go to law school? And I said, no. And he said, do you want to move to a college town? And I said, no. And then he said, do you want to get married? And I said, yes. And then he said, like, let's move to, you know, a college town in Alabama because I'm going to go to law school. I was like, oh my God.
That's an interesting progression.
It was.
I wonder if he's like, if I can't entice her there for any other thing, I just have to shackle her to me because I need her to come along. So that's pretty romantic.
That's super romantic. Says a lot about me.
And how considerate he is.
And you know, this is all, the good news is this is how long? This is like 16 or 17 years ago. So it worked out, thank God. But anyway, we moved down here and I got an internship at Southern Living, which is like, you know,
it was the perfect Venn diagram.
A Venn diagram. And I was like a 27-year-old intern, which now sounds super young to me, but at the time I felt like the grandma intern. You know, I was like, they were like, okay, keep your receipts. And I was like, I've traveled to Europe for my job. You know, like I was just sort of like, what's going on? And I was married, and none of the other interns were married. Like I just felt like I was a grandmother in this internship. But I learned a ton about magazine making because, you know, again, I'd been a journalist, but I had never produced a photo shoot. I mean, nothing. The visual storytelling is something I didn't have any experience in. So anyway, I literally just, you know, over the last like 16 or 17 years, you know, from intern, now I have very lucky and I have this awesome job. And I feel very lucky because I feel like there were a lot of moments along those 16 or 17 years where I was in the right place at the right time and had a lot of really good teachers.
I mean, that's true of everybody.
Yeah.
When you made the switch from writing about healthcare to writing about design, what I mean, I'm sure there was plenty that you foresaw would be a huge departure, at least notionally. What surprised you? Like similarities, or did you have to find a new way to storytell? What?
That's such a good question. I mean, there actually are some similarities, which that's probably the most surprising part.
Yeah.
Like the differences were also hard. So let me cover the differences first. And that really was the visual side of it. Like thinking through how, because you think, okay, well, I'm going to marry up pictures and words. All right, so sounds simple enough. And then so then I would write a caption for a photo. And my boss, who is an architect, not a practicing architect anymore, but my first magazine boss is an architect. And he would say, okay, that caption's fine, but you just described what was in the picture, but I can see the picture. So actually what I'd like for you to do with the caption is tell me a little more that helps me understand the picture, but I can't actually see. Like give me information that my eye, like,
Right.
Oh, she painted the walls light blue for an airy.
Right. Add to the picture.
Right.
Add
Exactly. He's like, I know it's airy thanks to the light blue walls, but like, tell me more, whatever. So that was like, I had to learn that I'm not describing what's in the picture. I'm actually like, you need both things. You need like the words and the picture to tell the whole story. And that was, perhaps a greater challenge than like one might realize, because it makes you realize, oh shoot, I didn't ask the right questions in the interview.
Having written what I now realize are totally shitty captions, I completely appreciate this.
Well, I mean, because, and again, it's like, and this is like a big journalism and or a life skill thing, but really and truly you realize, oh, I thought I was prepared, but I'm not. Like I didn't ask all the right questions in the interview. So now I've got to go back to the designer and say, okay, so I just took for granted that you painted the walls blue, but let's talk about like, what is it like? Anyway, you have to get a little more information out of that initial research. So that was like definitely sort of a change and a challenge that I've learned how to do or whatever. But the similarities are, the similarity is thinking through, and this is really important, who is your audience? So who are you speaking to with these words and these pictures? Is it someone, because who your audience, knowing that audience is all about how you tell the story. So that's equally as important for me. In my very first job out of college, I was writing about healthcare for people who worked at pharmaceutical companies. So they already know like way more than I do,
Sure.
But I was in this meeting and I heard this interesting thing that's going to affect their business in a certain way. So I needed to like think through like, well, if I'm writing this for like the marketing department of a giant pharmaceutical company, then there's a new regulation on what they can say in their advertisements or whatever, like that's what they need to know or whatever.
Sure.
And then same with magazines, like having started more at like the Southern Livings or Cottage Living, which is no longer around, but like pure kind of service journalism. These are consumer magazines. They may not hire a designer. They may want to see a project that a designer has done, but they kind of want to just get some ideas for themselves. Whereas now working at Veranda, these are people who are going to hire designers. And so they want different information out of the story than maybe
obvious, but I've never reflected upon that. Like,
and so no, but I mean, so that it really affects, like, again, it affects what kind of questions you ask, how you phrase things, like what becomes the most important part about the room or the house or whatever. But I think regardless, that's why, like, if you are a journalist, I mean, again, you kind of develop a beat and an expertise and you get better and better and better at that thing. But fundamentally, if you can think through, like, this is what my audience needs to know, so that way I'm going to ask the right questions. Interestingly, this has become important now that we like make magazines and do storytelling on Instagram and write digital stories. And
how do you parse it? How do you separate the buckets?
Right, and I think it comes down
to really, how do you do it?
You're like, no, really, tell us how you do that. Well, it's like you think that's both audience and experience. So like Instagram, people are moving so fast, they just kind of want, like,
except for here,
they're lingering and they're diving in and they're absorbing and right, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like, again, it's just like kind of thinking through, this is how this audience is going to experience this particular thing.
So before we go, okay, if I'm seeing this as kind of like a tree. So journalist, design journalist, editor. So when you're when you're writing the articles and the captions, that's like the producer.
Yeah.
And then editor-in-chief. I think a lot of people don't know what that means, because it's you have your hand in everything. Oh no, this is a great quotation that I used to use all the time, and it's very pompous, which, I mean, if you're going to have a quotation, it ought to be pompous. And it was like Flaubert or somebody, I think it was Flaubert, saying that the author of a novel, that the role of the author is to be everywhere present but nowhere visible.
Yep.
And I feel like you can drop that onto a lot of professions, but including mine,
including yours,
very much on editor-in-chief. So, you know, I think it's a lot more complicated than even I realize, having never done it.
Well, I mean, this is kind of a funny word that's popping in my head, but there are a lot of constituents, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
There's like, you know, there's the advertising side of the business, which is, as you get to the higher ranks in the editorial organization, you know, you deal more and more with kind of that side of the business. It's so important to what we do. And then there are the other editors, and I feel like, I mean, I take this very seriously. I probably fail at it a lot, but I try not to. You know, I think you, first of all, the magazine is only as good as like the team, right? We have an amazing team, but if they don't know what I want them to
somebody
do,
just wrote editor-in-chief equals God.
Oh, no. That's definitely not true. That is definitely the furthest thing.
It's a good comment.
Thank you for the comment, but no. But it's more like, you know, I just take seriously, because I've had other editors-in-chief who seemed, you know, at times like very indecisive, and that leaves the rest of us going, what do they want us to do? Like, I could do that, or I could do that.
So
or, you know,
leader.
So the leadership is very important, you know, and sort of like giving people good direction and good feedback and all of that. And then there's like the sort of promotional, like PR aspect of it, of just, and this gets a little blurry with the advertising side, but really it's more sort of consumer focused, of like, we need to let everyone know who we are, what we do, and what we stand for, and how you can buy us, you know, like,
right.
Like, we have to kind of,
to an extent,
right. To an extent. Yes.
And that must be your daily struggle.
Yes. Yep. For sure.
Also, so it's so interesting when you're like, okay, I'm listening to the healthcare people and I'm hearing this story and I'm like, oh, well, that will be of interest to them. So now you are obviously doing that on the small scale, but then you have to create this body of work of these different stories, and how to, you know, which ones you put together, and what you're like. Do you have a macro? I mean, I know you do, but I mean, do you speak something for each issue? Like, do you say to yourself before you compose it, like, this is the statement?
We do. We really do. I mean, so and the timing of this is like usually July or August, just to give people a sense of like how far in advance, but around July or August. So let's just take 2021. In July and August, and it crept into September this year of 2021, we mapped out like a sort of skeleton outline for all of 2022, saying like, okay, just to get, again, these are sneak peeks, breaking news on Alexa's podcast.
You know, all of us are interested, whether we're designers or people who just like interiors. This is very interesting.
No, sure. But so like, we'll say, okay, let's make our May-June issue, you know, that's going to be the designer issue. We're going to be focused all on designers. And then July, August is going to be our, you know, sort of seaside style issue. So we're going to be focused on like houses, gardens, and even sort of designy travel. So
first you go seasons.
Yeah.
Then you come down into activities within the seasons.
Correct. It's like a funnel. I mean, we really do. It's like It's like, let's take a huge idea and then break it down and come get more and more specific. So yeah, that's a big part of my job, is setting the whole sort of like year at a glance. And then once we have those nuggets, that inspires like, you know, our amazing kind of senior style and market editors to go, oh, she wants to do that. Well, I've been seeing this little thing and I'd love to blow it out and make it into like a huge feed. For example, March, April 2022 is we've never done this, but we have a green issue. Like it's literally dedicated to the color green. I mean, so you won't see only green in it.
So not
you'll
eco.
see a lot of green in it. Well, pardon?
So not eco. Green is a color,
not eco,
not as a.
Not eco, the color. Yeah. And like a little eco in the sense of like nature, but not eco like, you know.
Just a little nature.
Yeah, a little bit of nature, but like not like you know, not like low energy. Like think more visually, you know.
But you have to keep it broad enough to be able to find the gems, right?
Correct. Yes, and gem is an operative word. There are some fun jewelry stories in the working for the green issue. But yeah, so then that triggers our market editor to go, you know what? I've been dying to do this whole like into the woods feature, where you know she has like, and again, I don't want to say too much.
Where everyone becomes part of a musical.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, so that's a big part of it. There's like planning. I'll tell you another part of it, and I'm gonna like switch gears a little bit. Sorry, now there's more ambient noise where I am. But another big part of it is seeing everything together, because what we do is so visual. So I spend a lot of time like looking at all the stories that we have planned and going, oh gosh, now we have two sort of soft, you know, stories together. And so we got to separate the soft. We need something bold. And now I've got like 2 or 3 really formal things, and we need something a little bit more casual. And, you know, so it's that we do a lot of like moving around and analyzing of the visuals.
Oh God, I mean, I get that. Like on the one hand, you want it to be a coherent thread, but you don't want it to be so, you know, specific that it looks repetitive. I totally get that.
Like it can't be like one note.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I mean, I can, but you can't. So that makes me. How many issues do you have a year?
We have 6 issues a year. So all of our issues are kind of like bi-monthly, like March, April, May, June.
So there's a big question here. So obviously a lot of this is, you know how forever you pass by a storefront and it is the next season, which always really depresses me, because when you're in like happy summer and then you start seeing tweets. But obviously you are doing that. You have to telegraph, or to yourself, you have to figure out things in the future, like fashion. But now, like fashion, people are posting. So you have this fight with the immediacy of other mediums, or media rather.
It's true.
I mean, that must just like, how do you even deal with that? And you've been living in the moment where it's happening. Like you're carving out that path because it wasn't an issue before.
No, you're exactly right. Like what we do has changed so much, and it changes almost every year. Gosh, I have a lot to say about this.
I want to hear.
So I would say, okay, a lot of this comes down to the medium. I think that magazines are a place for the audience, the reader, to like stop and take it in and take a little more time with it. And
so consumption time.
Yes, exactly. And hopefully people will hang on to especially a magazine like Veranda, where, you know, the paper is really nice. Like we're not always breaking news in it. We're really kind of like showing people ideas that are meant to last. But, and this is a big like, but over, I would say, the last like 5 years, I think a trend in magazine design, meaning like layouts of pages, and ours included, has been to try to keep up with Instagram, like as in, or keep up with faster paced media. So, okay, let's put like a lot more pictures on a page and give people like a lot of things to look at, and, you know, scroll mentality, kind of instant, you know, flip. We have a big redesign planned for 2022, which is super exciting. We're going to add a lot of pages back to the magazine, which is really exciting. And we're going to like do a lot more sort of one picture per page. I mean, that's so literal, but like one amazing image where we basically shot a lot of stuff in situ to allow people to like soak it in, right? So at this that you think, Steele,
so yes, if you like if you have to compete, refuse.
Exactly.
Refuse to compete.
We're now taking the tack of like, be different, do something else.
Yeah.
Like, we
Own
can't
it.
compete with that. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
I feel like Lisa Rinna on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Own it.
Own it. I love it. But the key is, so back to your question, like, you know, somebody's making a new thing like fashion, you know, they have I just got an email about this right before you and I hopped on. November drop, right? Like everybody has their like drop, and they drop, you know, all the time. Fine, let them put it on Instagram, you know, no problem. Because once we cover that new product, let's say it's a beautiful piece of china. We're gonna set an incredible table with amazing florals, and, you know, against this like fabulous, you know, new like wall covering. So you're going to see that new item. Maybe you've seen it before on Instagram or in an email newsletter or whatever, but now you may see it 3 months later, 6 months later in Veranda, but you're going to see it in a context that's going to like.
And that was something you had written in your something. One of the things I was reading where you were saying, okay, which was another big question, which we somehow have to connect the dots from over here to over here, about going back to the South. So, so you just said context. You're also talking about showing things that are, what do you call it? Portable. China is portable, but it's a permanent member of your household.
Correct.
You pick your china at some age, and that's your china. And so it's the most portable, temporal thing, but it's the most eternal, like you are stuck with that baby once you choose.
It's so permanent.
That's it. That's your china. You're never going to go out and like get however many place settings again, unless you're really wonderful, in which case please hire me. But so then you take that temporal, immediate, eternal, temporary thing, and then you move to the South and you say, you know, we don't want to be regional. But I did feel like I wrote in the blurb, that I feel like you still want the happy connotations of hospitality, of ceremony, and, you know, not just slapping on a black schmata and running through Instagram, but getting dressed up, wearing the perfume, cracking open the china. So this is a huge question. How do you manage to make that move and have that joie de vivre that's kind of Southern, but then escaping Southern fare exclusively?
That is such a great question. I mean,
I like how you're very generous.
It's like a daily, you know, a daily top of mind thing, because you're right. We absolutely do not want to be regional or limited and that scope at all. But I think that there's something to that lifestyle, because I think what you're really getting at is like, there's design, and design is such a key part of it, but really it's lifestyle. It's like, I want a beautiful house because I want to have people over, because I want to use my china, because I want to get out my things, like all of these things, right? And I mean, honestly, this is where, you know, it's been a terrible almost 2 years for so many of us. But if there's been any moments of, you know, I don't know, of something, the notion that like, maybe I am going to love my home a little more and maybe use it more and use the china because I'm sitting in it. I'm sitting in my house. Like, I guess I'll pull out the good stuff or whatever. But anyway, back to that lifestyle. I do think that's a lifestyle that resonates with people across the country, and even a bit in Europe. I mean, we have quite a big following in the UK, which is exciting. There are parts of Europe that like don't know us at all that I would like to change that or whatever. But in the UK, you know, they like us in the UK, which is great because we love them too. But yeah, I think like, for example, I think California has California is a lot more casual, but I mean, they're not maybe like busting out the china and the pearls so much as people do in the South, but they do entertain at home a lot, you know, and they do spend time in their gardens and they do sort of host a little bit more. I think like it's a lifestyle that people aspire to across the country, whether or not they can have it immediately or have it right this second. They're realizing maybe I live in a city and so I'm not entertaining at home as much, but I have a weekend house, or I'd like to have a weekend house soon, and I'm going to do that. And it's almost like a liberating visual. This is what I want it to be, at least anyway. Like, you too can do this, you know, you find a way to do this.
Yeah.
And I do think it has become more appealing across the country now than ever before, partially because of what we've all been through in the last couple of years.
I also think in this day and age, it's not exclusive to, you know, you don't have to have grown up in a certain way in the South. And you know, a lot of talk has gone into being aspirational, but I think it's also just feeling like, yeah, I can do that if I want to. It doesn't matter. I'm as authentic. I'm as authentically do this as anybody else, even if my father was, you know, grew up on a farm, son of a farmer and an undertaker, which he was. You know, like, if we all want the glam or the fun or the cozy or a veranda, you know, we can have it. Who's to say we can't? Yeah,
exactly. Well, and that, I mean, gosh, that is like that might as well be our mission statement. Like, you know, you too can do this, and you're right. Like, you don't have to have some pedigree or some 100-year ritual of having done so. You know, if this is if this is appealing to you, you can do it.
Especially as certain rituals, looking in the past, you realize like how muddy and terrible, you know, and you don't want to glorify things that are predicated. You know, I'm sure that's like, a huge point of caution and sensitivity in the design business, because so much of design can telegraph things.
Totally.
Even if you don't mean to.
Even when you don't mean to, and the word you use, you don't want to glorify. I think I've said that in editorial staff meetings like 100 times. Okay, but we don't want to glorify some sort of thing. We look to the past for inspiration and context, etc. But we don't need to glorify some past practice that feels really like.
Right. If you think about it too hard and you realize what it's generated from, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible.
That's not even what I meant. You know, I just
like
those visuals or whatever. And like, but that's getting really complicated. And that is a daily.
But in a beautiful, blossoming, burgeoning, opportunities abounding way. So much like new life for us to discover. So tell me, go back to the buckets of magazine. What are all of the media you work on? You're obviously magazine.
Yeah, we've got Instagram, magazine. We have a website. We publish on our website probably 3 or 4 times a day, which is important. And we publish like we publish stuff from the magazine eventually, but we also publish entirely different things. Like yesterday, we published an article about, you know, the landscape design trends we're predicting for 2022. You will not see that in a magazine that we publish, because our magazines are out for 8 weeks. And so that would feel almost like old news after 8 weeks. Like on November 10th, it's a great web article, and it's like getting a little bit of traffic for us, and that's great. So web,
and advertisers needn't be, you know, it needn't be a mercenary situation. I mean, obviously it's advertising, but like your advertisers do make sense to Veranda.
Totally.
So if they're having a sale or an offering and you can tie it in, that's good.
We can do that, and we do. Yes, absolutely. And you're right. We're so lucky that our advertisers and our content, basically our end user, whether a magazine reader or a web reader, likes our content and our advertisers' content. So it's a win-win.
You're not trying to sell us on something we did not want if we picked up Veranda.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. and didn't have the intent to be thinking about while looking at, like, maybe you need to buy toilet paper anyway, but you don't want to think about that while you're looking at Veranda, you know.
I don't need to look at anything to know that.
That's a good point, actually.
Okay, so the website.
So the website.
Do website and Instagram ever overlap?
Pardon?
Do the website and Instagram ever overlap?
Yes. So usually once or twice a week, we'll do in Instagram stories, we'll do kind of like a roundup of like, here's what you missed on veranda.com this week. And that gives us a chance to like swipe up and see all these fun, you know, kind of either a sale or a short Q&A or, you know, whatever kind of fun, quick hit things that we do on the website. And then there's newsletter, and I love a newsletter, and maybe it's because I'm lazy, but I love like getting an email and going, oh, I didn't even know I needed a great pasta recipe for tonight, which I should pretty much always know that I need. But like,
I hope you'll forgive me for saying I don't read any newsletters.
Well, and I know,
but
people
like
are either like, I think they work for some people and they do not work for other people. A lot of people go through and delete every single
which
email.
Is why you have to do it all.
You're right. That's why we have to do it all. Yeah. Because like,
do you guys do TikToks?
We're dabbling in it. We're dabbling.
Because I was listening to a podcast. I mean, you could do a podcast too.
We could. I love podcasts. Podcasts are
podcasts where, yeah, somebody said though, like, you know, you must do TikToks, and I was like, oh, must I?
Must. I know. Must.
What's the difference between your stories and your Instagram feed? Oh wait, is Patreon newsletters? This is Sophie Dow.
Oh, Patreon is awesome. I love Patreon. Is a
because I listen to some podcasts on Patreon.
Patreon's a great platform. I do love Patreon. Sophie, I love that you're pointing that out. But I mean, because I really, again, like I also think that there's so many crappy newsletters out there that's why people delete newsletters. But like, if you get a good newsletter, again, you're sort of, it's like getting a daily magazine. It's like, I didn't even know that I wanted to know all this information, but I do.
And I do love it, obviously, from vendors,
from
antique dealers, and you know, because you never know when you miss something.
We have in our shop right now. Yeah, totally. And like, you know, or like, oh, not to use a specific company, but like, you know, Cherish is featuring so and so. I'm like, ooh, like it's a quick, you know, whatever. Where was I? But TikTok. Okay, I actually think, and this is where I'm like embarrassed to say it, but I'll say it. I think we're behind. I think Veranda, and it's a little bit of a resources thing and personnel thing, because all of this stuff,
it's like, who is the Veranda reader?
Well,
it's a lot broader than it used to be, but I'm assuming it's a grown-up.
It's a grown-up. It's a grown-up. But I think grown-ups are creeping into some TikTok. And I
watch them.
You see what I'm saying?
I watch dog reels.
It's so visual and it's so like fun, and I don't know. I think we need to get our TikTok game up and running stat. But Alexa, we need more people.
Right.
These things, I think people think that these things publish themselves. Like, oh, just pop it up on TikTok. Well, what makes a good TikTok is when someone's put a lot of time into it, you know? And it's so that's we got off track, but I think TikTok and design are I do think that Decorators, I'm starting to see some really fun like Decorator TikTok mashups.
Well, I enjoy some mindless entertainment that isn't, you know, mindlessness. But being entertained, I don't feel like it's gross. I don't feel like it's bad for me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. See, and here's a question for you. Like, I have this is me personally, but we'll get back to Veranda in a second. But like, I don't do Facebook. I have an account, but it's not my jam. Like,
yeah, me either.
And interestingly enough, Veranda, this is a long story that's like, we don't need to get into here, but we don't really do much Facebook either. So if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, please do, because we do post.
Please do, but prepare to be bored.
I mean, I don't, not so much prepare to be bored. It's just that we're not actively trying to grow. We post there. We basically.
Right. Instagram will connect you if you want, right?
Instagram connects us basically. So it's like, but we're not even, we have a much bigger following on Instagram, and that audience is like richer for us. I mean that like we get a lot more engagement out of them than we do on Facebook. So yeah.
God, there's so many questions to ask. Okay, let's go for a lazy one. What do you see as the future of Veranda?
Oh my gosh, that's not a lazy one.
That's mean, but you must have a handy, composed answer for this.
No, I do. I really do. We do have this like really big year plan for 2022. It's our 35th anniversary, and we're pardon.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. 35. I wish I were turning 35, but I'm not.
Me too.
But we have this huge redesign plan, and we're adding almost 40% more content to every issue, and that in the days of print media is huge. Like huge. We're gonna put a lot more content into each issue. We're adding to the trim size, so the pictures are going to be bigger, more immersive, and that's going to be awesome. Now, as a follow-up to that, this is not quite the question you asked me, but this is something that a friend asked me recently, and this is a friend who knows a lot about magazines. She said, does it help you or Veranda out more if I buy it on the newsstand or if I subscribe? 5 years ago, I would have said, oh, buy it on the newsstand, because we charge a little more per copy on the newsstand. And today, I'm saying subscribe. Please subscribe. Like that is, if you love magazines.
But get the physical magazine.
Subscribe to the print magazine. Yes. And what we have sucked at, I don't like that word, but I'm saying it anyway. What we've sucked at doing.
Oh, you sucked at it.
What we've sucked at doing in the media world is making it easy for people to subscribe. Like it's not, I know, I get it. It's not that easy to subscribe, but like follow me from time to time. I'll post a swipe up. We post swipe ups on our Veranda Instagram too. But go to veranda.com and subscribe. That is like if you love magazines, the thing to do is to literally subscribe to the hard copy. Again, 5 years ago, I would have said, pick us up at the bookstore or the grocery store or whatever on the newsstand. If you want to do that, that's fine.
Who goes to the grocery store? Who goes to the grocery store?
Exactly. And who goes to Barnes and Nobles? Because where is a Barnes and Noble? I mean, I love a Barnes and Noble, and I go to them, but like.
I used to go and truly judge books by their cover. I just go and buy like 12 books whose cover spoke to me for whatever reason.
Me too.
And plow through them.
I love that. But these days, I would say the future of Veranda is and the reason I'm saying the future of Veranda is like getting into more like maybe, having a better relationship with subscribers. We're really lucky. We have a super loyal subscriber base and a lot of magazines don't. And so that's going to hopefully fuel our future success. But we want to do more with our consumers. We want to eventually have just like a tighter relationship, maybe even more events with consumers, et cetera, et cetera. We really want to like hang on to and grow that consumer relationship.
What do you never want to see in Veranda? Like what do you watch yourself and say like, I have to resist, or I don't want to see that. That's not here.
I'm trying to edit my answers before I blurt something out.
Don't blurt.
I mean, first of all, just bad or boring. I don't want to ever see bad or boring. That may be obvious.
No, it's worth recalling, like first call to arms.
And I think especially boring. Like I want to surprise and delight the reader. So I want to bring you something you haven't seen before. Maybe you've seen something related, but you haven't seen it in this way. Yeah. And I want to kind of like, again, make you have the sense of like, I didn't know that how much I loved or needed that, and now I know, or whatever. So I don't want to ever see bad or boring. I don't want to see any sort of like, you'll never see like anything that even comes close to like DIY. You'll never see that in Veranda. We are all about supporting our designer industry and relationships. That is, I mean, you can find that elsewhere. So you're not going to see that.
Sure.
You're going to see custom, artisanal, sort of one-of-a-kind things. That's what you're going to see in Veranda. And then I also, I mean, again, this is going to make me sound like a snob, but I don't actually mean it to.
No.
I don't want anything that smacks of like a deal or a like imitation or anything.
Well, imitation is a serious.
It's a problem.
Yeah. But I'm, you know, I totally agree with you. It's hard to, you don't want to be like penny foolish, and you don't want to be a snob, and you don't want to be like expensive equals good, but special equals special.
Special.
And that need not have a price tag, but it needs some thought and some appreciation for the artist.
For the artist.
From whence you came,
the
from the land of artists. I think we might need to stop right there, just because we were able to thread that needle back.
We tied it right up with a pretty little bow.
Pretty little bow. But remind me that I just had an idea while we were talking that I need to call you and then tell you. Something that if I were, you know, would want from Veranda.
Ooh, yeah, what do you want? Please call me and tell me what you want from Veranda.
I will. What is, besides the fact that more is more, why the bigger trim size? Just more porn-like, more delicious, like looking at the pictures?
I'm like, thank you for asking that. The bigger trim size is super important. So we did this whole, and people just, you know, it might be, we put a lot of work into this redesign. You won't see it until May, June 2022, which is a hard year to say. But we've been working, at that point, we will have been working on it for a year.
That's tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're right. That's basically tomorrow. I mean, you know, it's crazy. But we mocked up an entire prototype of what the redesign will look like. So to clarify what I mean by that, we made like a fake issue that no one will ever see, so that we could even test out these things. We tested out having a 1/2 inch wider trim size will allow us, when we do a spread image that's like across both sides of the page, you will feel a difference. You will feel more like you're inside that room. It's incredible. Like, and frankly, we stacked up against the competition, and we're under delivering right now on our little 1/2 inch, you know, not as wide. We really feel like we are going to, like, you know, there are other brands out there that are printing on larger trim sizes, and this is a way for us to stay.
And you feel the difference.
Yeah, and you feel the difference. And honestly, like, a consumer will feel that difference. And, you know, that's important.
I'm so excited that you're being allowed to do this.
No kidding. You and me both. I have to give credit where credit is due to the financial guys at Hearst who figured out a way for us to make this a viable business plan. And they did. And that's
a different voice. It's not, you know, it's not a has run, has been. It has its own voice.
Thank you for saying that. And we again, if we're going to stay in this, like, we want to stay at this, like, you know, covering special luxe, you know, custom design, we need the magazine to actually feel like it is that as well. You know, it's at the top of the line in terms of what you can buy out there. And this was the change we needed to make.
Stuff well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So good talking to you. So good, since we were most recently on a panel where you were asking the questions.
That's right.
This was delicious retribution.
You were like, I'm turning it around.
And yeah, I think everyone's really excited to see what's coming. So thank you so much, Steele. I love the work that you do. You're so thoughtful and interesting, and your personality reflects all of the things that that's not reflects. All of the good things about you are going into Veranda. So thank you.
That means the world to me, coming from you, and thanks for giving us a little stage to talk about Veranda and what we're excited about.
So fun. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.